Hey there, in today's video I'm going to compare the stock picking records of Tom Nash, a relatively well-known stock market YouTuber with over 165,000 subscribers, and two penny stock YouTubers, Connor Invests and Practical Investing. Now, bottom line up front, if you just came for the conclusion, over the past 2 months, the penny stock YouTubers are actually doing slightly better than Tom Nash is doing. That said, when I compare the quality of the analysis, and specifically when I look at how each of these YouTubers arrives at their price targets for stock picks, it's clearly night and day, and Tom Nash is doing a much better job in that regard. But if you want to see what goes into this analysis, stick around. Real quick, if you haven't seen any of my other videos in this series, what I'm doing is I'm tracking a group of stock market YouTubers, and every time they post a video with a buy or a sell suggestion, I keep track of that data in a giant spreadsheet that updates in real time according to the current market price of those stock picks. And so that allows me to make some interesting comparisons and analysis. And every time they say that they're buying a stock, then I assume that I'm investing $100. And same thing if they say they're selling, then I assume that I sell. And so as I update that spreadsheet, I can make videos like this where I compare the records of different stock market YouTubers. And like I said, to date, we're gonna have Tom Nash on the one hand, and these two penny stock YouTubers on the other hand, Connor Invests and Practical Investing. I'm going to start with the numbers and take you into the spreadsheet. So here is the Tom Nash stock tip analysis, and this is where I've recorded every stock tip that he's provided since January 1st, 2021. Now, if anyone has come here from Tom Nash's actual channel, you'll know that he keeps his own spreadsheet, but mine is a little bit different because he has only indicated the first time that he talked about a stock, what the price of it was, and then calculates his ROI based on that. But what I'm doing is I'm actually keeping track of every time he posts a video talking about stocks, and even if he mentions the same stock multiple times, for instance Palantir, he's released several videos on that stock since January 1st, 2021. And so I think it's fair game to say every time he posts a video where he says that he's bullish about a stock, where he talks about buying a stock, then we got to include it at that date's current market price, because the ROI is going to be different, obviously, depending on what price you buy in at. And every additional video that any of these stock market YouTubers publishes is another chance for some viewer to see it and then to become interested in the stock and then to go into the marketplace and execute trades based on that information. So like I said, I'm going to start with Tom Nash, and this column here, F, is the gain-loss column. Some of them are up pretty big, like this one, BioNano Genomics, and some of them are not doing so well. For instance, if you bought into NIO or Tesla on some of those plays that he talked about very early on in the year, because of course there's been a pretty significant market pullback in the past week. And so scrolling down to the bottom here, if you had invested $100 in each of these stock tips at the time of the video's release date, then your current ROI would be negative 1.3%, which is not too bad, all things considered, with the market being totally red in the last week. Next up is going to be Practical Investing, who I've spoken about previously on this channel. And immediately, if we're looking at the gain-loss column here, I'm struck by the fact that some of these are in the $50 or the $60 range, whereas some of them are actually way up. Like this one here, Vine, ticker symbol Vine, is up almost to $400. So the spreads on these penny stocks is much higher as expected. And there's way more stock tips. He posts videos almost daily. Scrolling down to the bottom though to see the total ROI, if you had invested $100 in every Practical Investing stock tip since the beginning of January, your ROI would be sitting at 1.22% today. Not bad, at least it's in the positives. Finally, we got Connor Invests, and he has not posted as much as some of the other guys, but scrolling down to the bottom, you can see total ROI at almost 7%, 6.78%. So actually, out of these three stock market YouTubers, Connor Invests is doing the best over the past 2 months. And in a second, I'm going to talk about how each of these three YouTubers comes up with their price targets for these stock picks. And that's important because the credibility and trustworthiness of this information is really dependent on the quality of the underlying analysis. And we need to know, are these guys actually doing the appropriate financial analysis to come up with an educated bull or bear thesis? Or are they sort of just plucking numbers out of thin air and throwing them out there as a price target? Before I get into that though, I just wanted to say, when it comes to credentials, Tom Nash, as far as I can tell, is the only one that has actual legitimate bona fides in the finance industry. He seems to have an MBA and a law degree, and he worked as a senior financial analyst, as you can tell if you watch any of his content. And when it comes to the other two guys, it's not so clear. For practical investing, there's no information whatsoever about the guy behind the channel, and I have no idea whether or not he actually knows what he's doing, if he works in the industry, or if he's just some random guy that decided he wanted to make a YouTube channel talking about stock picks. And then for Connor Invests, it's kind of the same story, except for this guy, you can see he used as his profile pic what seems to be a prom or a graduation photo. And so you really have to wonder, are you going to be taking stock picks from YouTube from someone who probably just graduated from high school? Anyways, setting that aside for now, I'm going to show you one example each of how these guys come up with their price targets for these stock picks. And as you can see, the difference between how they come up with that price target is really telling. And first up is Connor Invests.
Now the stock we're going to be discussing today is HighTide. And mathematically, when we compare SNDL with a $4 billion market cap and HighTide with a $300 million market cap, similar revenues, and HighTide actually posts a profit, it's almost impossible to say over time this stock couldn't be at around $7 a share if it reaches the same hype that Sundial Growers has. I just see, like I said, a lot of potential with this stock in general, and I think this will be an easy at least 2x in this year, or maybe even further than that. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, 2 points on this. First of all, Connor Invest's price target of $7 per share is not grounded in reality, it's not grounded in financial analysis, it's basically just plucked from thin air. And what he's giving as evidence to support this is that he's saying it's not impossible that this could happen. Okay, sure, but that's not necessarily showing that it is going to happen or that it's even likely to happen. And the second point is that he says he sees a lot of potential in the stock and that it's an easy 2x in the next year. But where are you taking that from? And how are you coming up with those figures? There's no proof, no evidence given, and so in my opinion, this is not a valid price target. Next up is practical investing.
So the first penny stock on the list is Progressive Care Inc., ticker symbol RXMD. Let me go ahead and give you guys a breakdown of this stock along with my price target. The MyVax platform is expected to launch over the coming weeks and will include complete patient scheduling, telehealth, and telepharmacy platform services. This, in my opinion, will be a massive step forward for the company, in my opinion, and could potentially drive the stock higher even in the short term. The current market cap for RXMD is $78 million. My price target for this stock is going to be 50 cents by the end of the year, as I do believe this stock is undervalued. I wouldn't be surprised if we see this stock trading over $1 within 12 months.
Okay, when it comes to this price target, basically it's coming from the fact that they've got a new product that's going to be released soon, and so practical investing is, again, in my opinion, just plucking a number out of thin air, saying that it could be valued at 50 cents by the end of the year, or maybe even $1. But if you go and watch the video, and I'll throw the link to this as well as to the other 2 videos in the description box, there's no other proof, no evidence given. It's a totally qualitative analysis, and there's nothing in my mind that indicates that this is a valid price target for this company. Next up is Tom Nash.
And I'm doing this video as a follow-up. I did a video about Palantir as one of the most interesting stocks to buy and hold for the rest of this and next year. As you can see right here, this is my DCF. We have here the assumptions. My federal tax rate is still the 21%. I used a 12% discount rate, a 25 multiplier, that's for tech, a current share price, outstanding, debt, and cash. These are my assumptions. Now what I did here is I basically built an estimation of EBITDA, earnings before tax and depreciation, and I built a cash flow all the way to 2024. So this is the valuation I got, which is 33 billion, which is slightly higher than what they have today. And this is my target share price for today. So if I had to buy the share today, this is what I'm seeing, almost $20. So as you know, right now, the share is traded at 18.15. This is the weekend, so it's not going to change when I publish this video. So 18.15, meaning that I think that this company right now, currently, is 10% undervalued today.
When you examine this price target and how Tom Nash arrived at it, and then compare that to the other 2, the penny stock YouTubers, it's obviously not in the same category. Now, whether or not Tom Nash's assumptions underlying this model here are correct is another story, and they may be, they may not be, and that is of course open for debate. But at least in this instance, I can tell that Tom Nash knows what he's talking about and has done some basic research, has come up with some numbers, and has thrown some assumptions into a spreadsheet to try to at least form an educated bull or bear thesis. And in this case, it's a bull thesis because he thinks that Palantir is undervalued. To wrap it up here, if you follow Tom Nash's stock picks, your ROI right now might not be as good as if you followed some of these penny stock YouTuber stock picks. But when you compare the quality of the analysis and you examine how these guys come to their price targets, it's really telling. The reason why I'm honing in on price targets and how these YouTubers are arriving at them is because when they're posting videos talking about these stocks and investment opportunities, they're using price targets as an indication that there's an upside or that there's growth potential. Whether or not the price target that's being given is trustworthy and credible, though, makes a huge difference, because anybody can come up with a price target and say that any certain penny stock is going to be worth 2 times, 5 times, or 10 times within the next year. But that has to be grounded in reality, and it has to be an educated, informed price target. The world of price targets itself is a pretty gray, murky area in my opinion, and it's basically about making predictions for the future, which in my past experience never really seems to work out that well. But that said, if you are going to provide a price target, and as a viewer, if you're going to be looking at price targets and considering whether or not you should invest in any one of these stocks, it's important to know that that price target is grounded in financial reality and that there has been underlying analysis that is adequate and that is appropriate. And I'm not sure, maybe there is additional research and analytics that is going behind these other price targets for Connor Invest or Practical Investing and other penny stock YouTubers, but they're not showing it in any case, and Tom Nash is. That's all I have to say about this today. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this and you want to see more of these types of videos, please don't forget to hit subscribe. See you next time.